Shelburne, Kalishaw, Yates, McMullen. Who will get the first laugh? Who will get the last laugh? And who will realize with the NBA schedule that everybody plays everybody? Calm down, people. Yeah. Let's go around the horn. I mean, what's the big deal? Yes, they got good games on Christmas Day. They're the ones picking the games, we know.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter.
Feels new.
Here's Tony Reali.
We'll get to that in a bit. Changes to NCAA basketball starting now. College players and quote-unquote elite high school players, unquote, can be repped by agents. Agents must be certified by an NCAA program, and players can declare for the NBA draft and go through the combine and return to school if undrafted, among other changes. But let's start right there, Ramona Shelburne. How does it strike you, and how does it change the landscape?
Like, I think any change is a good change because they had to do something after the FBI investigation into college basketball. But I would like to have seen there be a little more cooperation and work together with the NBA and the NCAA on this, because I think what the NCAA saw was, one, we have to do something because of the FBI, and two, the NBA was just going to do it for them if they didn't jump in and do something, and so they wanted to have their say. This doesn't go nearly far enough. There's a lot of loopholes here that are going to be maybe even more problematic than what they're trying to solve, but at least they did something. So we'll leave it at that.
But you're wondering if the NCAA and NBA are in concert here as they're making.
They should be, but I don't think they are, because
Jackie
the NBA
Mack, do you have an answer
was getting real close.
Well, I think it almost doesn't matter in a way, because the NCAA is the one that's under fire. The NBA is just standing back and saying, well, we're going to change our eligibility requirements, and you guys are going to have to deal with it. The idea of now saying up front, you can have an agent. That was the worst kept secret in college sports and pro sports. And you know that too, Ramona. We knew who these guys' agents were long before they were drafted, long before they even declared. And that's just how it's always been. So now that's transparent. But the idea of a high school senior having an agent, if I'm that high school senior's parent, if I'm that AAU coach, I'm going to start worrying about the shoe companies and the AAU team and the high school team. Does he leave the high school team to prepare for the pros before his high school team's about to win a state championship, for instance? These are the kind of things that concern me.
So if the question were, is the NCAA facing amateurism head on, your answer would be you're not convinced either way. Okay.
No.
Clinton Yates, how about you?
I think the NCAA is doing something we've seen in a lot of different realms in America recently, which is just sort of decriminalizing what we already know is happening and thus eliminating a lot of headaches out of what it is that they do. And this is completely reasonable as far as I'm concerned. If everybody knows this, as Jackie was saying, then why are you even bothering wasting time from an administrative standpoint going through all this? But the thing that concerns me about it is this. If you think about all the low-level guys who might be in a scenario in which they don't know whether or not they're coming back or not, having to declare by Monday after a Thursday draft whether or not you're going back to school seems to me to be an undue, burden on how you're going to be able to make that decision. You might try to make a squad through summer league. You might try to otherwise try out. And if you don't know if your roster spot's coming back from college, and if you don't know if you have the time to make it, that's a little tight, and you're going to end up.
Okay, all right, yeah. So that deadline was set for the Monday afternoon or almost early evening,
3 days,
the day after the draft, weekend after the draft. That deadline could be moved, I guess, theoretically. But I understand what you're saying there. Tim Kalishaw, join us.
I mean, I think everybody's made good points. Give everybody a point. But I think the bigger picture is this, and that is that in a sport that has a huge problem, and that is that the players are worth lots of money, and you can't directly pay the players, somebody's going to get paid, whether it's coaches, shoe companies, all the things we saw from this FBI investigation, all the money that's being funneled around. This addresses some of the smaller things. You can get rid of some of the small violations. So-and-so got a meal from an agent. But you also have a level of players who aren't allowed to have agents. It's USA Basketball is going to designate which players can have agents, and the ones right below that are almost as good can't.
That is
so you're still going to have violations
intriguing,
there.
Isn't it, Tim? That USA Basketball is going to make an assessment on who are elite, quote-unquote elite players, as the release said. And then someone else is making an assessment who the elite players are as well. Is today better than yesterday, I guess is my question, Tim.
Yeah, it's better. It's very, very small steps in a sport that has a long way to go to clean up its mess.
Mm-hmm. Ramona, same question to you.
Yeah, I think we're in a better place because they finally did what they've been doing in the baseball side of things, which is recognizing that people do need advice. And, I think they're able to now say, okay, I'm representing this player. They can get a good gauge on where they might be drafted, whereas the player doesn't have to make that decision themselves. So we're in a better place, but they opened up a whole nother can of worms with the way that they did this.
It's interesting, though, that you brought up the baseball model, because in the baseball model, wouldn't you say the minor leagues is king over the NCAA? So if this is going to a baseball model, well, wouldn't that mean potentially the summer leagues, the G League could be rising, whereas the NCAA is in its own precarious position? McMullen, last word. You can address that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the G League, they've pumped more money in. The salaries are raised every year, but it's still not a good option for a player coming out. Going overseas, if you don't make an NBA roster, is still a better option. That's what the NBA has to fix.
Clinton said this before we went on air, and I'll just put it in your words right now, Clinton. Nothing's changing the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament still is going to be king. It's still going to be something people watch. People like rooting for the Kentuckys, the Kansases. Kalishaw said, oh, yeah, I'll give you a point for those guys off air. But the fact is, the league, the NBA, can be looking elsewhere. We'll move on. Football now. Eagles camp. Nick Foles out with a neck. Carson Wentz yet to practice 11 on 11. That's going back from the injury he had at the end of last year. And he said, quote, would I love to be out there Thursday? Absolutely. I'd love to be out there every day. But I think for me personally, I think I'll be fine if I don't get out there for preseason. Tim, is the news there that Carson Wentz may miss all the preseason? And if so, is that a big deal, little deal, or no deal?
It's a deal. It's somewhere between a deal and a big deal. There's a couple of things here. One, a week ago in camp, he was doing 11 and 11, and at some point they decided this is a bad idea. He's not doing that anymore. So either something happened or they came to the realization he wasn't ready for it. The bigger thing to me is Carson Wentz is a running quarterback. When he was hurt against the Rams, he was fourth in the league at that time in rushing attempts. How is that going to translate? Is he still going to have that skill? Is he going to try to hide that skill? Is he going to be afraid to do it? Is he going to get hurt doing it? I think all those things come into question when you, if you sit out the entire preseason and you just start playing in that first Thursday night.
Glenn Yates?
It's a big deal because if Nick Foles is hurt as well, what are you going to do as far as the quarterback position is involved in Philadelphia? And not to mention, if Nick Foles is going to be the one that's playing the whole time and we don't know if Carson Wentz is actually hurt or actually going to be able to play, then maybe he might just lose the job as he probably should because the dude that can play is actually better than him. I would be very concerned about this if I were Wentz because let's not forget Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. I don't know why he's so confident about this considering we haven't seen him play football in such a long time.
Jackie McMullen?
But I think that's exactly why it is a deal. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm doing the exact same thing, Tony. If I think my future franchise quarterback isn't ready to play, if I'm not 100% certain that he can withstand the kind of hits that Tim is talking about, I believe he was the fourth or fifth most hit quarterback in the league last year. I'm going to make sure he's 100% healthy before I roll him back out there. And if that means that Nick Foles takes his place for some preseason games, so be it.
Or Nate Sudfeld or Joe Callahan, because that's who it looks like, at least for the first game here. Shelburne, how about you?
Wait, I just want to check what Clinton said there. You think he should lose the job? You think?
No, what I'm saying is that if he can't get on the field to play and Foles is actually playing, we've seen him be good, so he might actually end up losing it because he simply hasn't gotten the reps.
Mm-hmm. I mean, okay, Shelburne turning the screw there on Yates, though. I like that.
I mean, look, this is your franchise quarterback. Like, I think Nick Foles is on the team. He had a great run. He had a great Super Bowl. He'll always have that moment. But to me, Carson Wentz is your guy, and he's just coming back from a major knee injury. You don't rush him at all. If he says, I'm not really ready to go, you just listen to that guy because players always want to play. So if they're telling you they're not ready, let him sit out until he's darn ready.
He's not just any other backup. He won the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. That has to count for something.
I think, though, that would suggest the Eagles, A, are in a good position because they have two quarterbacks they certainly believe they can go to the Super Bowl with. And B, this is a team that maybe can rise above what a normal team would consider quarterback issues, right? I mean, they clearly did that. None of you guys had them even competing for the Super Bowl when he first went down, Wentz, and we saw what they did with Foles. All right, we'll see what happens over the first couple of preseason games, and we'll move on. Jarvis Landry on Hard Knocks. Earmuffs.
If you're not hurt, like if your hamstring ain't falling off the bone, your leg ain't broke, I don't know, like, you should be practicing. Like, that is weakness, and it's contagious as and that won't be in this room, bro. That been here in the past, and that's why the past has been like it is, bro. All that weak don't live here no more. That don't exist. It's contagious, bro.
You can catch Jarvis Landry and the Bleep Machine in the full episode streaming on HBO Now and HBO Go. Can a speech like that change the culture of losing the Browns have, Clinton?
I don't think so. Look, I mean, I respect Jarvis Landry for trying to get people fired up, but I don't think he says this if he doesn't know that he's on TV. He's wearing slides in a locker room, in a position room. And more importantly, the Browns haven't won anything in a long time because they haven't been able to be competent at putting together a football team. Look at their quarterback situation. Look at their front office situation. They're making movies about that in Hollywood. It has nothing to do with whether or not one guy is firing up his team with some modern-day Newt Rockney speech. This is nice, but it's not going to do much.
Tim Calishow?
I think Jarvis Landry, the total package, the whole picture could make a difference. We saw him making all those one-handed grabs last night. We saw the attitude he brings to the team. Now, he only said this in a meeting of wide receivers, but everybody on that roster is going to watch, see this show, and they're going to all know it. They're going to all hear it. But, yeah, they still need better players. It hasn't been a situation where they just didn't have receivers working hard.
Jackie, coaches love this. Fans love this. Is it the right message?
Well, that's what I'm not sure about. I think it's great. I looked it up. Jarvis Landry has played 16 games all 4 years that he's been in the NFL. And that's really something as a receiver to celebrate because that's not easy to do because we know receivers get crushed regularly. However, I'm not sure I want somebody out there telling guys, like, if you're hurt, you have to play because we know this by now. Some guys have serious injuries that shouldn't be playing. Logan Mankins played with a torn ACL for the New England Patriots for almost a whole season. Is that what you want everybody to do? I sincerely doubt it. So I do have some questions about what the message he's sending there.
And Ramona?
Well, it was a nice speech, but it was a little out of context. And I think if you watch the whole episode of it, there was a scene between Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, talking about the training staff holding guys out in preventative ways. And Hugh Jackson says, look, we've had so many guys who've missed games, and when you're sitting in my seat, you have to see the whole picture. So I think it's a little out of context in the sense that there may be guys who are sitting out who want to be out there, but they're being told to sit out. I thought Jarvis Landry, though, was the star of that first one. It's funny that we showed the Bleep Machine because his whole catchphrase was, bless him, bless him, bless him. He kept saying that over and over. So on one hand, he's getting bleeped, and the other hand, he's saying bless him.
CY, last word.
Since 2015, all their first-rounders cut or traded. It is a fundamental roster construction problem.
It is. And actually, it's not even 2015. It's 2012. Since 2012, every first-round pick they've had up until 2016. This year's, of course, still on the field. And 17's year, not with the half of them are out of football altogether. All right, taking a break right here by yourself on the other side.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm as happy as a clam.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will be, quote, as happy as a clam, unquote. The Geico legal team cannot accurately verify clams even experience the complex human emotional state known as happiness. As an invertebrate mollusk living half submerged on the ocean floor, with no arms, legs, or wireless access, what's there to be happy about? A clam's all like, oh, I'm so happy I didn't get turned into New England clam chowder today. Pronounced regionally as chowder. Chowder. Oh, that's so fun to say. What were we talking about again?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Buy or sell.
NBA schedule day. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Everybody plays everybody.
Oh, look at that.
People get so excited about Christmas Day. Lakers, Warriors, Sixers, Celtics. What did you... It's not like this was any more than a room of people saying, oh, well, we'll see what most people would want to see, and we'll put it out there. The story is that it's August 8th, and you're talking about the NBA, and that's something I want to get to in this next story. Aaron Rodgers broached this in this piece in The Ringer with Kevin Clark. What would he do if he were commissioner? A number of his ideas seem to be more like the NBA, or at least in the CBA and salary cap. Rodgers wants to get rid of franchise tags, wants more player movement like the NBA has. Ramona, buy or sell?
Yeah, I buy his comments here, and I think it's particularly applicable to him. He's under team control for 2 more years in his contract, and then they can franchise him a few more times. So he really has no leverage in the situation with the Packers. To me, though, the biggest difference and the most important difference is the hard cap and guaranteed money. The fact that they don't have guaranteed money in the NFL changes everything.
Tim Calishow?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of a softer cap is obviously a good one, and teams could do more, and that would make things more interesting. I don't think the NBA is the proper model, at the risk of offending everybody on this show, especially the 2 people in the distant corner plasmas. The mid-level exception, the biannual exception, bird rights, non-exclusive bird rights. The average fan doesn't know what all that means, and they don't need to bring all that stuff into
Glenn Yates?
Yeah, he's right. The crazy thing about the NBA schedule, by the way, Suns, nationally televised home opener, what are we even doing here? That's insane. But what we're talking about here is a popularity thing with Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand what you're complaining about. The NFL is a year-round league. You've got guys tweeting play-by-play from training camp that is not going to matter at all once the regular season starts. More player movement is not what's going to make this league more popular. I just don't understand this argument outside of the labor issue, which is entirely separate from whether or not it's, doing well in the ratings.
Jackie,
yeah, but Clinton, I don't think Aaron Rodgers' concern is to make his league more popular. I think his concern is to make sure that NFL players get paid better and get paid more lucratively. Remember, the average career of an NFL player is 3.3 years, okay? Not for quarterbacks, but for everybody else. The idea that you can be waived, one of the best players one year and waived the next without any guaranteed money, that's what has always bothered all the NFL players. And that's when they look at NBA players who are done for good with a torn ACL and are going to collect 4 more years. They're like, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
Playing football, not basketball.
So, exactly. Do you think then a new generation of athletes should be thinking about themselves as basketball players and not football players? Jackie? Clinton?
I do, but don't talk to the man down there in the left plaza with the mustache. I don't know.
We'll move on. Baseball. Felix Hernandez had his first laugh with Adrian Beltre. Did not have the last laugh or any laugh after that. And now a sentence that didn't even seem possible for the last decade, especially with the Mariners in a playoff race. Could Seattle yank Felix from the rotation? We'll see, said Scott Servais. Is this your king, Tim Calishaw? What should the Mariners do?
I don't think that it's time to do that yet. I know this is going to sound homerish. The Rangers are the last place team. That's still a tough place to pitch. It's the most offensive-friendly park in the American League, and you can have a night like that. Now, he's had a few nights, not quite that bad. They don't have a better option, so I think he sticks around for a while.
See why?
Yeah, I think it's something that you do, if only for the reason that everybody knows what his place is within this rotation. He's been the most important player in that franchise for quite some time, and I don't think it's going to be some massive ego hit for him to figure out how to get it together if they actually are going to make this playoff run.
Jackie Mack?
Boy, I respectfully disagree with you guys. I know he's been the face of the franchise and everybody loves him, but these guys are trying to make the playoffs. You have Erasmo Ramirez ready to come off the DL. Take your great Felix Hernandez and ask him to just step back for a bit, and then you can try to bring him back later because you know it's going to happen. Somebody else will get hurt and he'll get another shot.
I assume that he must be hurt to have been performing as poorly as he has this season, but I checked in with our resident Mariners expert, Mina Kynes, and she said, sadly, just old, I think. And then I went and looked, and it's his 13th year. How sad is this going to be if the Mariners finally get good again and he can't be the guy out there in their first playoff game? Oh, very sad.
Bartolo Colon, career win number 246 in that game. Most for any Latin American-born pitcher in baseball history. Sam Miller, ESPN.com. Bartolo Colon, Hall of Famer? Maybe it's not so crazy. Clinton, buy or sell that?
I'm buying it. I mean, I love Bartolo Colon as a simple character in the game. His longevity is something to be proud of. And he hit his first career homer last year. I mean, after all this time in the bigs, I love this guy. I just think for the reason, it was 2 years ago, I think for the reason of having him in the Hall, it's just greater addition.
So you'd put him in the Hall because he's a character, I think is how you started that answer.
I would do that for a lot more Hall of Fames around the globe.
Okay,
yes.
Number one, Clinton. Sam Miller finally concluded, no, after all that Bartolo Colon wasn't a Hall of Famer in that very long story that we all had to read. And number two, his longevity. Do you remember that this dude was busted for PEDs? That has something to do with longevity as well. I think Bartolo Colon's entertaining, but that's not who I put in my Hall of Fame.
Ramona?
I mean, first of all, that B-roll you just showed of him catching the ball, not falling, is Hall of Fame worthy right there. Good props to whoever pulled that one. Look, just because he's become a novelty and a nice story for us all to talk about as he pitches into his 40s and maybe he'll make it to 50s, doesn't mean he's a Hall of Famer. It's just a nice story.
Tim Calishaw.
Interesting story and possibly the ace of the Rangers staff. That's a different story. But I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I have a hard time saying, Mike Messina, yeah, you're not a Hall of Famer. Bartolo Colon, because you pitched for 22 years, you're a Hall of Famer. I
don't think so.
No love for the old man. Just because you are a character doesn't mean you have character, Clinton Yates. Jackie Mack also getting the bullet right here. Shelburne, Calishaw. Go down next. Ramona Shelburne, Tim Calishaw, showdown. PGA Championship starts tomorrow. Who you got? And in the who you don't got, but you have to talk about portion, what would a win be for Tiger Woods? Ramona, you want to start us off?
I just think he has to make it through the weekend in one piece. I mean, he's taking ice baths. This is his 14th tournament. That's the most he's played in since 2013. All in all, for him to be healthy, that's an accomplishment. I'm going to take Francesco Molinari just because that's what I want to say.
Playing to the host. This is the time of year everybody picks Ricky Fowler because he's been close so many times. I'm going to say that it is finally time for Tommy Fleetwood to win. However, Tiger, there's no win for him other than a win. He led the British Open with 9 holes to go.
Yeah.
No more moral victory.
That's the answer to the question that was asked, Tim Kalishaw, and that's the point. We'll move on. Showdown 2, Buccaneers defensive lineman Noah Spence. He put on 35 pounds this offseason, eating 2 vegan protein shakes, cream of wheat, 3 French toast, 2 more protein shakes, grilled chicken, broccoli, mashed cauliflower, pasta, turkey, 2 more protein shakes, steak, shrimp, potatoes, zucchini, and squash, peanut butter jelly sandwich with a glass of chocolate almond milk, and 1 more shake. 9 to 10 meals a day for 9,000 calories. What's the most amazing part of that diet, Tim Kalishaw?
The most amazing part, as you alluded to, there are 7 protein shakes, each 700 calories for 4,900 calories. He has 5 meals on top of that. That's just getting warmed up.
I'm somebody eating for 2 right now, and even that sounds like gross to me. That's so much food. And I don't have any room anymore, so this whole shake thing, that's like your way of coating all the food that you have in there when you don't have any more room. So I think
so excited for you, Ramona. When's the due date? It's Labor Day, right? You're going to be laboring on Labor Day.
September 22nd. I still got time. No more room.
2 in Plasma 1 right now. Get you 2 points. Kalishaw, give birth. Maybe you win a showdown. Here we go, Ramona.
All right, well, this is the baseball nerd in me coming out. But last night in the Dodgers-A's game, Austin Barnes, catcher for the Dodgers, put down a safety squeeze, executed it perfectly down the first base line. The runner scored. Then he tried it again in the 6th inning. In this era of home runs and chicks dig the long ball, I love all the small ball, and especially now with the new catcher rules, I think more teams should do this squeeze.
All right, Ramona Shelburne, the big win, big day, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. 4 weeks?
Kids are a combined 49 years old.
Labor Day, right? Can't wait. We'll see you Monday.